Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier, and this is the Piracy Show. Now, this episode is obviously going to be coming out a little late. And the reason for that is originally this episode was going to be a different episode. But, you know, I wasn't happy with how it turned out. I actually fully recorded it, rendered it, everything was there, ready to upload, and I was like, I don't like this episode. I really don't like it. And so I was kind of looking at some other stuff on my channel, and I noticed that the Carrack episode, the brutally honest review of the Carrack, had kind of blown up a little bit. And there was one comment like, I don't get why you called it the brutally honest. And the thing of it is I was playing off the idea that everyone knows that I don't pull punches, and everybody knows that, you know, I call it like I see it, right? Even when I make mistakes, like right now when I'm restoring my blood by drinking water. Some people will get that joke. And I was just kind of playing off that because it was one of the videos that I love to do. When you see something and you're just like, oh my God, this is so right. This is so perfect. This is so dead on. I'm not sure if I included the joke in the final version of the Carrack review, but I was talking about like the Carrack and the way it flies and the way it handles, and I might have cut the joke out, but I'm gonna put it back in now, I guess, retroactively. Like flying the Carrack is such a joy, and it just cooperates with you, and it just responds so beautifully to your hand, to like your control inputs. Whereas flying something like the Connie is like trying to help navigate a belligerent drunk girlfriend down a flight of stairs. It's like, I don't need your help. I can do this for myself. And you're just like, disaster. That's honestly what flying the Connie feels like. And there was another episode actually that never got finished and never got made, where I was, because I had a loaner Connie for something, right? And I just said, you know what, I'm gonna fly this thing around, and what if you kind of geared out the Connie? Could you use it, you know, could you use it as kind of a combat ship? Maybe something as, you know, kind of like if you're a Corsair owner, something that could kind of get you the feel of the Corsair. And the Connie was just a disaster, and that's why that episode never got made. And I was just like, this ship is awful. I mean, the layout inside isn't horrible, and there are redeeming features in the ship, but the way it flies, I mean, yeah, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And so, you know, those are the episodes that I like to make. Those are the episodes where it's just like, this is so right. This is so perfect. And there's a lot of things in Star Citizen that are so good. You know, when I was talking about, you know, you go and you try out all these different games to try to get something to kind of keep the group together while you're waiting for Star Citizen to be finished. And you start to pick up on the fact that, you know, the kind of the subtext of the video is, you know, Star Citizen is trying to amalgamate all these different types of games into one game, and that kind of gives you an idea of why they're struggling as much as they are. And I mean, that is, you know, it's easy to say, you know, oh, Chris Roberts, take your time, blah blah blah, but when you think about the people that you see working on Star Citizen, you really kind of, you get an idea of, you know, no one's really sitting on their hands, right? No one's kind of sitting there with their feet up just going, yeah, 300 million, let's go. I think I'm just going to go home early today. You don't get that impression when you see them working and you see them producing the work. The only real criticism that I have of the work in general is oftentimes I feel that there are some critical review steps that are kind of skipped in order to produce things more quickly, that maybe there should be a little bit more of a control when things get out or when things are produced, because it feels kind of like some ships and some features in the game kind of get pushed out maybe a little too soon. and not a lot of thought was put into them, and it's just like you realize that that's going to be a major problem. And it's like, no, but it looks good. And it's just like, yeah, it's not about looking good, it's about how is it going to function in the game. And so there are times with certain ships where it feels like this is more of a portfolio piece than it really is like a functional element in the game. And I think that that's kind of really, I think that that's a fair criticism with certain ships in Star Citizen. Now that I feel is a fair criticism of, you know, Star Citizen. One of the unfair criticisms that I've kind of spoken out against over the years is this kind of like the topic of griefing in Star Citizen. And a lot of people have kind of like, oh my God, you know, they're ramming me on the landing pad, they're destroying my fun and all this sort of thing. Now, we know from the beginning that Star Citizen was going to be an open world PvP universe, but there were going to be limitations on that PvP, and there were going to be rules set in place to kind of limit the damage, let's say, that people can do. It's not going to be a universe where you're always safe, because a universe where you're always safe, frankly, isn't always exciting. And certainly isn't always fun and challenging, and I think you need a little bit of challenge and a little bit of fun to make it, to give it a little bit of fun. But, you know, a lot of people were really up in arms and angry about these things, and I was saying, you know, hey, that's not a fair criticism, because you're looking at a very incomplete system, right? You're looking at a system without laws, without really law enforcement in place. You're looking at a system without crime stat at one point. You're looking at a system where, like, when we originally were able to spawn ships in 2.0, anybody could walk onto your ship while you were inside of Olisar spawning it. Just walk on, take command of your ship, and just fly away with it, right? It took a while for them to actually change that so that people couldn't do that. But people were just, like, assuming this is what Star Citizen's gonna be. Like, this is it, 2.0, you know, and this is how it is, and oh my God, let's panic. And it's like, of course that's not it, and of course this is nowhere near the finished product. And so you're looking at an incomplete system, and you're passing judgment on it based on its, you know, as if it was a finished system, which it wasn't. It was an annoyance, and it was certainly an issue that needed to be raised, but it's not a complete system. Now we are seeing, at this point, with prisons, with crime stat, with the difficulty in removing crime stat, we're seeing how that kind of modifies player behavior. And I think we can all, you know, safely say that it has gotten a lot better. It's not ideal, it's not perfect, and you can still just be randomly killed by players, but you can see the direction that it's going in, so you can kind of extrapolate where we're going to end up, and you're like, oh, okay, it's actually not going to be that bad. You know, we've talked about the future of law enforcement in the Stanton system, and the fact that maybe because, you know, this is kind of like one of these quote-unquote high security systems, that we may be reduced to things like, for those of us who participate in the kind of like the pirate end of the world, we may be limited to things like smuggling. Like, smuggling might be the safest way for us to make money in this part of the universe, whereas in a system like Pyro, maybe that's going to be more of the old, you know, kind of like the Wild Wild West situation, where it's just like every person for themselves, which is going to have a certain amount of appeal to one segment of the game's population and not so much for the other. But they've got Stanton and they've got Terra and other systems like that, whereas the criminal element of griefers will probably congregate in areas like Pyro, and then they'll play together, and so there may be some limited interactions, but they're not going to be that frequent, right? So that was a very unfair criticism kind of leveled at Star Citizen, and that was leveled at it by backers, and like I didn't support that, because it was a foolish notion to assume that at such an early stage that all these systems would be in place, and so, you know, this is how it actually is, and this is how it's going to be. When you look at the video game industry over the last 10 to 15 years. I think that those of us who, certainly PC gamers and console gamers from the 90s all the way till now, we can all safely assume that we've seen some really great video games that have come out over the last 10, 15 years, but we've also seen a very worrying trend within the industry. As video games became mainstream and as they became corporate, quality has not increased, and in fact has the quality of the experience of playing the games, while the graphics have gotten better by leaps and bounds, the quality of the end product, the quality of the experience that you get from it, I would argue has not increased and has in fact gone down. There's a lot more emphasis now on quick and easy payouts and these kind of like quick and easy emotional highs. There's a lot of emphasis on how can we get more for less investment and things like that. And so it's not really an area or it's not a fertile field for passion projects to really develop, to grow in. And that's really what Star Citizen is. Star Citizen is something that kind of bucks the trend of, you know, a traditional corporate studio produced game. I mean, obviously we have broken so many rules and at the same time so many records. And, you know, everyone's going like, ooh, 300 million, 300 million. I would say that the more astonishing number, though it's not really something that you can attach a number to, is the test of patience that Star Citizen has been. Because if you could put a number on that, it would be astronomical. It would be in the lead by an insane margin, you know, waiting for this game to come out. But it's still, it's a thing that kind of has to exist. It's a thing that I think, you know, a lot of people kind of go and they go like, oh, Star Citizen fans, you know, they just buy the next set of pixels or things like that. And I think, you know, obviously, you know, oh, it's a cool ship, I want that chip, you know, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, I think that there's an element of that, but I think that there's also an unconscious desire to kind of push against the world of, you know, quick and easy expansions and the maximum financial returns versus, you know, financial investments. I think that is kind of an unconscious undercurrent that kind of drives a lot of players as they see this as something that is attractive in its I don't want to use the word unprofessionalness, but it's attractive in its rebellious nature, because it bucks that trend and it says, no. We're not doing loot boxes. Yeah, we're asking you for money, but we're telling you what we're going to give you. Now, another related area where Star Citizen deserves praise is that all we've really seen in the game right now, and something that is ideal, is a deterministic system for advancement in the game. Now, what I mean by that, and I'm going to use a WoW comparison, because it's apt, and also because I know it'll irritate a couple of people. But recently, in a raid, a piece of loot dropped. This was probably about 3-4 weeks ago. Hard to keep track of time these days, if you know what I mean. And it was ideal for myself and one other player. It was a significant power gain for both of us. And so we had a roll off for it, and the other player won. But then that player quit the game like 6 days later. And so the GM, who is also the raid leader, kind of felt super guilty about that, because here was the ideal power gain. Here was, you know, this kind of like keystone piece of loot that was going to just up my damage by a crazy amount, and it just walked out the door. And he felt really terrible about that. And because of the random nature of that loot system, which is designed, you know, supposedly to create this kind of like moment of excitement when the chest opens and stuff like that. But realistically, it isn't. It's there to increase engagement, you know, to make the numbers look better. It's like, oh, gotta keep trying for that thing. And that's kind of the insidious side of RNG loot systems. Star Citizen shows zero evidence of that. Star Citizen, like, let's say I want to improve my Freelancer, let's say I want to improve my Cutlass or my Corsair one day, hopefully, fingers crossed. SC, are you listening? Something like that. Like, if I want to get a particular gun or a particular engine or a particular shield, there's a path, there's a deterministic path to get that thing. And I just have to say, okay, I want this thing. Here's the path to get it. Get on the path. Just start chugging along. You get there when you get there, and you get the thing that you're after. So you're not being actively held back. It's not like someone in SC has access to a gun that no one else has access to, and it gives them a tremendous advantage over other players, right? You can determine your path to that power level. You're not just governed by RNG. I mean, there's one particular amount that I've been trying for. I looked up the statistics. I have made 194 boss kills trying to get this mount out of this dungeon, and I've never gotten it. I've only seen it drop once, and it went to someone else. In SC, there is nothing like that. There's no, like, we're just gonna keep making you try and try again type things. It's, here it is, you put in the work, you get the reward. And that's important. That is a big thing. A lot of people might not consciously realize that, but that is really kind of bucking the trend against a lot of other games where it's all loot boxes or it's just RNG loot drops, and that can have such a tremendous effect on your power levels. That's a real crutch that the gaming industry has leaned on for a long time, and not for the betterment of the player experience, in my opinion. So, like, in the end, I guess, like, the videos like the Carrack video are the videos that I like to make because it's a little bit of fun, but it's also praising something that goes so intensely right in Star Citizen, and at the same time implying that this should be your starting point. This should be your, this is where a ship's feeling kind of starts, and then we can kind of give it its own personality or texture, or however you want to, you know, say it. This is where we should start from. Those are the fun videos to make. You know what? I'm gonna make another prediction video very soon. I think, yeah, I'm gonna modify the original video that was supposed to take the Wednesday slot. I'm gonna make another prediction video about people's kind of fear that all these megacorps and mega alliances that are buying these ships like the Javelin are just gonna stomp over everybody in the game. I've got some thoughts on that matter. I think people are kind of blowing out of proportion, but I'll leave that for the next time. But yeah, videos like the Carrack video are the videos that I really like to make.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.